What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 102. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside Forbes 30 Under 30, aka the future class of gaming, aka the OK Beast Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Greg, I'm happy to be here with you. No X-Cast hosts to keep us apart.
Oh man, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if we had to defile your SoundCloud feeds. I know you got a podcast dropping on Saturday. So what's this? Why is the XCast on the PS I Love You feed? It was us crossing over with them, and God, having listened to Snowbike, my Paris Lily talk about
Disgusting.
The Xbox games that we also picked in our draft, some of which before they could. Disgusting, horrible,
disgusting. At least we cheated them, you know. At least we were like, oh, you know what? No DLC, and then we picked DLC. You know
what? That's how PlayStation has always gotten over. All right, cheating. That's what we do. That's what PlayStation does. That's how it's gonna work. How are you, Blessing?
I'm doing pretty good. Very big happy birthday to Janet Garcia.
Not here today because of it. You're an audio listener. No, there's no Janet. Exactly. Taylor, you're allowed to clap for it. Janet, that instead, of course, the voice you hear there and you're going to meet right now is none other than IGN's Taylor Lyles. Hello, Taylor.
Hello. Thank you all for having me, Greg. It started with like a Twitter DM and then an email, and here we are. So I think this was perfect timing too.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. I've been talking to you, of course. How long have you been at IGN now?
I started in May, like the second week of May, like May 10th, right, cool. I think is my anniversary.
You're over there, you're associate tech editor, formerly of The Verge. You're covering all things gadgets and goodness over at IGN. And so, yeah, I think I followed you early on there about something. And then, we were DMing, and then we were excited to meet each other at Game Awards. Then I didn't go to Game Awards because of the baby and the corona. And then it was like, okay, cool, let's get you on a show. But what show? And as luck would have it, it turned out that you were basically covering everything and anything from CES, and you were the point contact there for PlayStation VR2. So it's great to have you today for an episode all about PlayStation VR2 for the most part.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about it. I know you said you wanted to pick my brain a little bit on it, so please do, because I've been talking nonstop about it. I've been dreaming about it, even though we don't even know what the thing looks like. But you know what? I want to talk about it. I'm excited for it, even though we don't know what it looks like. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts on predictions, like in terms of just like release date and price.
Tons of room for that. Don't worry, Taylor. Because this. Oh, what do you got?
Well, speaking of predictions, then we'll get into it in the topic of the show. But like last week was our predictions episode, and I don't know why it didn't cross any of our minds, honestly, that like something would be announced at CES, given that like it seems like Sony likes CES. That's where we got the PS5 logo.
Yeah, we did get that. I mean, the original Xbox, I know this is a PlayStation show, but they did reveal that at CES in like 2001. So I was like, there's been a couple of game announcements at CES. Too many people sleep on CES, but sometimes you'll get a head tilt announcment. And I thought it was going to be Samsung.
I've just been around long enough.
NFTs.
Oh, sure.
So you've been around long enough too. So I thought Samsung announcing NFTs on smart TVs was going to be the thing that was like, wait, what? That was like the biggest shocker. But no, it was Sony, name dropping PSVR2 and giving us a spec list of most of the stuff. It's missing a few things, but we'll talk about that in a second. So.
Well, and my thing about it, Bless, is if you remember, I had forgotten all about it because as being as old as I am and covering PlayStation as long as I've done I'll stay at the office and do the live blog of this and nothing happens. Be like, why did I waste my time with this? And if you remember when CES came around, when we restarted PS I Love You 2 years ago, obviously, and then CES was like, whatever, week 2 of that year or whatever. And I remember hitting up Sony and just being like, so if I was hypothetically bringing back a PlayStation show, should I be worried? And they're like, don't worry about this. I'm like, thank you very much. It's either incredibly cool and hot, like the PlayStation 5 logo, PlayStation VR, or it's nothing. And it's totally not worth your time. And it's this crapshoot every time. And with coronavirus this year, it's been weird. It didn't even feel like CS was really happening. I know different for you, Taylor, as someone who's covering everything happening with it. But for us normies, I was a bit like, oh yeah, whatever. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Especially for us on the game side of things, where usually you CS you associate with tech, you don't necessarily associate with video games. Yeah. And even when this PSVR2 stuff was going down, I was checking my DMs, and the homie Yusef McGee was like, I'm surprised they announced it at CES. And like I read that, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, well, I guess where else? Like we're like,
GDC, right?
And we'll talk about it, right? But we're like, where else are they going to talk about it? You know, GDC exists. I think we theorized like Project Spartacus maybe being a GDC thing or something like that. But like, it's not like they're going to show up at E3. They're not. I don't think they will talk about PSVR at a PlayStation presentation like we got last fall. I don't think they will talk about it during a state of play because I think those are now a little bit chill and more low key. And when I start checking things off of, all right, not here, not here, not here, CES starts to make a lot of sense.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about like, yeah, I mean, because when I think of mostly gaming related stuff at CES, you know, the big three, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they kind of just like they don't really, you know, they're not really there. There's not a whole lot of a presence there. I mean, if there is, I guess it would be TVs, but again, it's TVs are also for just like other things, like, you know, watching TVs, like movies and like stuff like that. So, you know, there is gaming stuff that does come out of it. Like I know a couple years ago, Alienware had this like concept that looks very like if you look at it and then you look at the Steam Deck, you're just like, oh, okay. But again, it was a concept. So, you know, but when you look at something like that and you know, there's been other stuff too. Like it's mostly like a lot of like quirky gaming gadgets that I really like. So,
sure.
You know, there's gaming stuff that comes out of CES, but it's not like the big heavy hitter stuff that like Xbox or Sony or Nintendo's is like announcing most of the time. I mean, obviously, last week was a good example of, oh yeah, they're just like, hey, here's some PSVR2 stuff. So
no big deal.
You know, it was so funny because like I was already planning on watching this, and like a couple of my colleagues on Slack, they were just like thinking like, are they gonna announce this? Or are they gonna? Maybe. I was like, I don't know if we can expect more than TVs from them, but you know, I'm gonna be watching it. And something I don't know what it was, but I think it was when I saw that Tom Holland came on stage and they showed a clip from the Uncharted movie, and that's when I was like, you know what? We might actually get it. So I already had I was already prepped to write this. I was like,
sure.
If they announce PlayStation VR 2, I'm going to be ready for it. I will get it out the door as like a breaking story. But and I was like, when it started, I was like, they might. I mean, I think the weirdest thing that they probably announced at that presentation was the fact that they're pivoting to electric vehicles. So I was like, no, I don't see anybody talking about that. I thought that was just like the weirdest thing. But yeah, you know what? PSVR 2, that was like a spotlight. Maybe next was Tom Holland talking about how much he liked Uncharted. But, you know, and obviously the game reveal for PlayStation VR 2, that was also like just like
that was big, moment. Right? I didn't see that coming. The New Horizon game for sure.
I was not expecting that. I actually thought that was going to be like a state of play thing. I actually thought like when they did the PSVR 2 name drop, I was like, okay, they'll probably like put out a PlayStation blog and it'll have all the specs, and they did do that. But when they were also like, oh, they had Guerrilla Games on, and they were like, yeah, we're going to announce a new Horizon game and it's going to be for PlayStation VR 2, and that's when I was like, wait, what? So I put it in my original story, and then we were like, hey, wait, let's get another story out on this because I think this is interesting enough to make it its own thing. I was like, well, okay, when you think about it like that, yeah, even though all we have is like some brief gameplay that we could grab screen grabs for, and just about it, like there was a whole lot of information, but there was also like, it felt like so much, you know what I mean?
Well, what I'm interested to dive in with you is when we were talking today, getting you ready for the show, one of the things you said is that so many people have written it off and just been like, oh, they announced some stuff, but it wasn't that exciting. And you're so excited about it. And I can't wait to get into that, which we will in 1 second, because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Each and every week we come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you can be part of the show at patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. Over on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad free. You can get the show with the exclusive post show we do each and every week. And then, of course, you can be watching live like so many are right now. The Trogs, Madeline, Omega 3, Joshy G, they're all there. They're hanging out. You could be watching live as we record it each and every Monday. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. You can get each and every episode of PS I Love You XOXO on youtube.com/KindaFunny, roosterteeth.com, and on podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday. Of course, you'll have ads. You won't get the post show. You won't have written in. You won't have seen it live, but it's an easy way to support for free, just like using the KindaFunny Epic Creator Code. If you are on the Epic Game Store, if you're playing Fortnite on any device, if you're playing Rocket League on any device, you can use the Creator Code KindaFunny, all one word. Anything you purchase there, it kicks back to us, and we get some help with the business. It's a great deal for you to still play your games and support us without actually giving us any money directly. If that wasn't enough for you, I have housekeeping. Number one, I saw Blessing do this on KindaFunny Games Daily, and I forgot because I had taken 3 months off. Don't forget to rate all the shows on Spotify at KindaFunny. Spotify introduced star rankings, and if you go in there and rate them for us, it helps us out. Even if you watch on YouTube or listen somewhere else, you can go to Spotify, click that you listen to all of them or whatever Markham has played, and then you can leave a little review for us. It helps us get to other people. Remember, there's a new merch line up on KindaFunny.com/store right now, and there will be a new one each and every month. Andy and myself are hitting the links in everybody's golf over on twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames at 11 a.m. Pacific, right after Kinda Funny Games Daily. You can catch us playing on youtube.com/KindaFunnyPlays later, or live twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames. And then finally, remember, for PS I Love You XOXO scheduling, you still have time to beat Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is getting re-reviewed next week in a spoiler cast, book club, whatever you want to call it. Get your thoughts in on Patreon. I will spoil it for you. Janet Garcia did, in fact, platinum Horizon Zero Dawn. It's all over. It's all over. I don't know if IGN wrote it up yet, Taylor. You're here with us, so I don't know if you want to put it in your Slack, your Trello, go for it. Just let them know.
Gotta put it on the sign a card on Trello. Someone get on top of that, man.
It's a big deal over there. But yeah, we'll be talking about that next week and getting into it and seeing what we think of it. There's already a new form up for patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. You can go there, submit your PS I Love You questions, and talk about your review of Horizon Zero Dawn for our re-review next week. Thank you to our Patreon producers, James Davis, a.k.a. at James Davis Makes, Praise Portillo, Greg Miller's back and better than ever, Pranksky, Delaney Twinning, Tyler Ross, First Responder, ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, and Casey Andrews. Oh, today we're brought to you by... I built this doc and I'm like, did I update the advertisers? I'm not sure if I did. Hold on. I did. Okay, maybe. Okay. Today we're brought to you by MeUndies, DoorDash, and Chime, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's start the show with topic of the show. Taylor, you're here because, of course, you covered the big reveal, the unexpected reveal of PlayStation VR 2 at CES. You say not enough people are understanding what a big deal it is, so I turn it to you. What is the big deal about PlayStation VR 2?
Okay, so I mean, aside from the fact that Sony's like, when they announced last year that they're like, hey, we're making another PlayStation VR headset. I think the specs actually paint a better picture just of what we can expect from this headset. I know a lot of people immediately were thinking, oh, okay, let me compare this to the Oculus Quest 2. I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison, just solely for the fact that the Quest 2 is a standalone VR headset, whereas the PlayStation VR 2 is tethered to that PlayStation 5. It's an accessory for a game console that a lot of people still can't buy, I might add. But so I don't know.
Well, let's start there. Let's start there, Taylor. Because again, you obviously, I know you've been on Podcast Beyond a bunch. I know you talk about PlayStation all the time, but I know as well, you're tech for IGN. Were you concerned at all about the viability of PlayStation VR 2 based on the fact that they can't even make PlayStation 5s? And they already said this was going to be a PlayStation 5 device. Because on the prediction episode last week, recorded on Monday, this happening then on Tuesday, I did say, hey, man, I still hope PlayStation VR happens. I love PlayStation VR, you know what I mean? But if something was going to fall away, because I've been saying that I always thought that maybe they wouldn't actually commit to PlayStation VR 2 long term. I was like, maybe this is when it would fall away. The fact that you're still trying to get the systems out, let alone there's chip shortages for everything else. Why launch another device that's going to be so hard to get? Was that a foolish thing to worry about? Do you think that this is at all affecting what they're planning for, Taylor?
I mean, I think it's... I've been so perplexed about this because on one hand I do agree with you. I feel it seems so weird to make this this headset, and obviously it's not a standalone, it's not a hybrid or anything. Like, you need a PlayStation 5, and I think about how hard it is to still buy these even almost 2 years after it launched. I feel that I was going to save this for later on in the chat, but I might as well rip that Band-Aid off now, because I think a lot of people think that, a lot of people are probably going to be thinking hey, is this going to outsell the Quest 2? I don't think it is. I think there's a lot. I can break down every reason why, but I think if we focus on the fact that it's trying to compete against the Quest 2, I think that's an unfair comparison. Because again, the Quest 2 doesn't need a PC to use it. You can use a PC with it, but it's not, it has its own processor, has its own GPU unit and things like that. It has all the specs that it can run on its own. It doesn't need a gaming PC like, say, a Valve Index or even an HTC Vive. And it's kind of unfair to compare them fully. You can still do it specifically with just resolution and things like that, and we can get to that in a second. But I think what will determine what makes the PlayStation VR 2 successful is, what can they do to convince people that have a PS5 now, hey, you should buy this? Because I feel with the original PlayStation VR, I like it. I have one. It's somewhere in my room. I think it's under in that behind that door right there. But what I think, I like it, but there was also so many cords. Greg, you had one. You saw.
I think all of our PSVRs.
Yeah,
and I think all of our VRs are in our closet right now.
And that's the thing you're doing. Why I often. I feel hollow sometimes when I'm like, I love PlayStation VR, and I do, but it's also a part of loving the idea of it. I loved how quirky it was. I loved that they did it and they took a shot on it, but it has been gathering dust since Iron Man VR. I'm probably forgetting something that came after that I actually sat down and played. Maybe more Saints and Sinners and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I think Walking Dead and Saints and Sinners came out like soon afterwards.
But it's that thing of since I took it off and put it down, I don't feel like I've missed must-play PlayStation VR games. It's not like I'm like, oh man, everybody's been saying I need to play this or I've done this other thing. It's an awesome, cool device, but it is such a destination device, right? Like my PlayStation 5 is on every day, and before that, my PlayStation 4. It's part of it's ubiquitous with my life. Whereas PlayStation VR reminds me so much of being a kid, and my dad built a go-kart, which sounds awesome, right? But it was like such a production to get the go-kart out that we never used the go-kart. Because it would have was the gas isn't in it and the oil isn't in it and the tires need air and like da, da, da. It was always these things of like, well, no, or it's not turnkey. I can't use it. And so there was a question. So many of you wrote into patreon.com/KindaFunny games, of course, to talk on the show to be part of this. I can't thank you enough, as always, for doing it, right? But like, there's so much going on in terms of what the Quest has meant and how that's changed the story already. The fact that I think the Quest is such an amazing device. And it goes back to me then at GDC 2015, right after we launched KindaFunny, and PlayStation was talking about PlayStation VR, and we were asking all the developers that came through, VR is going to be the next big thing, or do you think it'll be the next big thing, and who's going to win, blah, blah, blah. And infamously, Lauren Lanning from Oddworld was like, oh, PlayStation VR is going to be the one that it does the best. And we were all like, what? Like better than Oculus, better than this? And he's like, yeah, like it's the easiest to use. There are so many of these PlayStation 4s out there. You can plug in and do that no problem. They're going to sell more than Oculus. They're going to sell more than Vive. They're going to sell more than X, Y, and Z. And this is before Quest, obviously. And so he was right. That was the story. Though that was what happened because it was easy. And so now, we get here and we're like, what's going to happen next with this? And where are we going to go with VR and this thing? And it's exciting. There's a PlayStation VR too. And yeah, Taylor, you have this great chart that Amanda Flagg over at IGN made for your article. That's just fantastic. That goes and compares them all and does all this stuff. But even there, you get into what matters, right? And how's this actually going to check out in the end? Is it going to be the pixels per eye, or is it going to be ease of use? Because Ben Hutchinson wrote in too. Patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, just like you can. It says, in a world where we've seen great success from the Oculus Quest 2, part of that success coming from the fact that the cord is optional, are we worried Sony is putting out a product that is somewhat tethered by the past by remaining corded? Or does it matter that much? That had been the big dream, right, Bless, when we started talking about PlayStation VR 2. Oh, I hope this thing's wireless. Oh, man, Quest is so awesome. Here we are. It's not. And we also have a release date. So by the time this gets out and it's corded, even though it's a single cord, is it already going to be too late, Blessing?
I think they're in a difficult place because I think in a perfect world, yeah, we'd get a cordless PSVR console, and that's what so many people would prefer, especially coming off of using the Quest or the Quest 2 and having that experience of being hands-free and all the processing going on in the headset. But for what PSVR is, and for what probably a big part of the strategy is for PSVR, right? Like it being connected to the console is a huge thing because you're utilizing the power of that console. And so if the options for Sony and PlayStation are, hey, let's have a VR headset that is, connected via one cord to the console, but then because of that is able to, produce these big budget, really cool VR experiences, have Horizon VR and probably way more that are going to be announced versus, hey, let's make something from the ground up that is going to be a standalone headset that is going to cost us a ton of money and is going to be probably cost way more and have all these other things. I think that second option just doesn't get made because at that point, is it worth it for PlayStation, right? Like PlayStation is in the business of selling PlayStation 5s. They're not necessarily in the even though they're in the business of selling PSVR as well, they're in the business of selling PSVR tethered to PS5s, right? It's the power of the PS5 that I think really pushes that idea. I think the headset is way more of a peripheral than a standalone device for Sony and PlayStation. I think they're very okay with it being that. And so, it's kind of a sad scenario to be in, to be like, shit, well, we got to have a cord connecting you and tethering you to the console. But I also don't think it's the end of the world. It is going to be I think it's going to be a thing that unsells a lot of people. And like I look at that and I'm bummed, but I know personally, I'm gonna still invest in it. We'll see how long I play it for, because I think like you guys, my PSVR is in my closet as well, and if it didn't have so many cords and shit attached to it, would it still be in my closet? That's another question. But for what they're presenting so far, it seems like a really cool thing. I think the technology seems really awesome, and I'm willing to put up with one cord. One cord I think I'm personally willing to put up with for the experiences that they seem like they're going to provide for this thing. But so then it is a hump to get over.
come all the way back to you, Taylor, right? I think it's interesting to be in this conversation, some 7 years later, that again, what headset will win out? What's PlayStation VR's viability? Like, I'm excited for it. Blessing's excited. You're excited for it. We're video game fans. We're tech fans. We want all these bells and whistles. But to look at the success of PlayStation VR, right, over the past 6 years, you start talking about like, oh yeah, it sold really well. And I remember the Andrew House article quoting him of like, man, we underproduced. I was wrong on how many people would adopt it. There were still, like, at the time, 100 million plus or whatever it was, PlayStation 4s in the wild. And so now you're talking about, back to your point, Taylor, there's so few PlayStation 5s in the wild. I'm excited. I'm sorry, not excited. I'm caught off guard by the fact they're talking about it already and making it into a thing already, because I thought you would have done the cart before the horse, and you would have done the horse before the cart with the PlayStation 5 and gotten those ramped up to speed, get them out, and then sell this device.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because like, I wish I knew more about like kind of like the parameters on all this, but I think more about how I want to say I'm not surprised. I don't think I'm surprised that they are announcing this, just solely for the fact that we're about to approach 2 years of the PlayStation 5. Jim Ryan has mentioned in at least one interview that they wanted to get back into VR. I think I know that a lot of people are probably upset because they're like, why not just ramp up more production on the PlayStation 5s as well? But I also feel that I don't think them making a PSVR 2 is really, in my opinion, won't impact too much on PS5. I mean, yeah, obviously, if you don't have a PS5, there's no point in you buying a PlayStation VR 2. That's just a waste of money. But I also feel that with the like first like 5 years of like the console's like lifespan, I always feel like this is like a time where a lot more stuff will come out, like accessories, whether it's an accessory or whatever you may be. I feel like this is like the time where it's like, we're getting like small little sprinkles of like what this thing can do. And I feel like if I had to think of something that would be a good kind of like reflection of the first 2 years of PlayStation, why not release the next iteration of the PlayStation VR? We already know it was coming. They've announced it was coming. We saw what the controllers look like, which, by the way, I'm really excited to just hold them because I think they're just like the coolest little thing. They look like the first gen Oculus Touch controllers. If you've ever seen the Oculus Touch controllers, they look really a lot like that. And I was just like, but obviously it's a lot more like a round. It kind of almost looks like it's covering your hand in a way. Yeah. And just all the features that are coming with it, like the haptics, the adaptive triggers. I think with just like the amount of immersion that it's going to offer with the Sense controllers. And then you think about what the headset itself is going to offer, like eye tracking, which isn't even on the, not on the Quest 2 and things like that. Like I think about how much immersion we're going to get, but it doesn't matter how much the tech has if there's nothing that's going to support it, because everyone thinks that hardware is always going to sell it, and like it doesn't matter how powerful the hardware is. It does to some degree, but in my opinion, the software always prioritizes. If you don't have software that convinces someone to go, holy crap, I gotta buy this thing, what's the point of doing it? Like, I very much knew a lot of people that bought a Quest 2 because they heard about Resident Evil 4 VR and it was only coming to Quest 2, not Quest 1, not Valve Index, not original PlayStation VR. It was coming on the Quest 2 or the Quest 2, and they're like, yeah, I gotta buy this, I have to buy this. But I'm also like, guys, there's like so many other games that you should buy that are on the Quest 2 that you should try out. But I'm also glad that you're buying one because I think VR is really fun, and I like VR, and I could go on for hours about why I like it for my own reasons. But to just get back to your point, I feel with the current state of PlayStation, and I feel like it was only a matter of time that we were going to get this. And I feel like with the progress we've been seeing with just the hardware and the technical prowess of the PlayStation VR, I think it's good that they're introducing it this early into the generation, because then we'll start to see in the next like 5 years, like what can this console really do? Because like, yeah, if we stack it up with the Xbox Series X, like it's not up to par. It's like a little bit off, but it's still like a very powerful console. We've seen a lot of impressive games. The haptics on the DualSense controller have definitely made it my personal preference when I play games. If I'm choosing between Series X or PlayStation 5, if it's a third-party game and I don't want it on PC, I'm most likely going to get it on PlayStation 5 because I just love the DualSense controllers. I remember I wrote a story about kind of like the origins of it, and I got to talk to the designer about it. I thought it was the coolest thing, and there's like another story I'm kind of doing as a follow-up for that because I just love the DualSense controller. It's for great. Sure.
And you're a person of taste. You'd have to be a stupid idiot who lives in Lake Tahoe to not like the DualSense. That's who you'd have to be.
But yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's still going to be hard to find this PSVR 2 when it comes out because of FOMO and scalpers and bots, which I've covered before. F the bots. But, I think in terms of like the demand for it. Like, yes, I think people will be, there's people that are upset that don't have a PS5 that are like, why are they making this now? But I just don't think I don't think it'll personally impact the issue with supply chain right now. It's the chip shortage is always is an issue right now, and it probably will be till next year. But I think with the current state of the tech and just like the market and the goals that they kind of wanted to have for PlayStation, I think this made the most sense. And when they acquired Firesprite, I was like, this makes even more sense.
Yeah,
and they're co-developing that Horizon game. So I was like, when I saw that like late last year, I was like, maybe we'll get more PSVR2 news early in the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they were working on a new VR game. And here we are. So I think with from the acquisitions or the acquisitions they made, from them showing us the touch controllers to the fact that they just flat out said early last year, hey, we're making a new PSVR headset. I think it was only a matter of time that we were going to get it within the first 2 to 3 years of the PS5's lifespan, regardless of a chip shortage or not.
And there's a couple of different things in there that I think are interesting to pull out. The chip shortage and the inability to get PlayStation 5s out to people right now is obviously a unique problem to this compared to last generation. But if you jump back to PlayStation 4, right, of course, comes in 2013. PlayStation VR is announced in 2014, then released in 2016. And so if you start thinking about when they're actually going to release PlayStation VR 2, which is a conversation we will get to in this show with you, Taylor, and you, Blessing, you have to start thinking about not where the ball is, but where the ball's going, right? And so if you got a plan for the moment you're able to sell PlayStation 5s easily and that there is no chip shortage and you have to be able to get the stuff out there. My concern is just that, especially when you look at what I got from you, the audience, right? I put out a tweet. Obviously, I update the PlayStation questions every time for PlayStation VR on Patreon. And so I put up a whole bunch of different PlayStation VR ones there. And the questions that, I asked were like, what do you want? What's your dream game? What would keep you away? And what are you afraid of? And so many people were afraid of stuff like what Thwip said, right? Price, lack of interesting games. I was saying, okay, cool. Like, what do you want from PlayStation VR? Christoph wrote in and said, a compelling reason to put it on regularly, right? We're talking about the library here. We're talking about what's going on. And so when you start getting into like, what are people afraid of, right? Like Matt D says, between global supply chain issues and the popularity of the wireless Quest 2, I worry adoption of PlayStation VR won't be fast enough for multiplayer titles to achieve success. And again, even though VR is a compelling market right now and has a bunch of great games on it, it did for like the stupid venture capitalists that came in thinking this is the next big thing. It was a bust. And so you saw people retreat from the market. You see a bunch of people say, can't say enough things about Polyarc, can't say enough good things about PlayStation as they continue to work on this, right? But I do worry if PlayStation VR 2 is hampered by the fact that, okay, cool, it's corded, so it's less popular. Okay, cool, it's made for the PlayStation 5, but there's not that many PlayStation 5s out there. So we're still selling at a fraction of what that user base is for this. Like, unless PlayStation's throwing money behind these games, which maybe they will this time around. They already are, obviously, with Horizon. Are you going to have enough compelling games on this to make it happen? Even now, as we talk about, PlayStation VR sitting in all of our closets right now because there isn't a compelling reason to throw it back on or have it out all the time. That could be an argument because the games that people would be making right now, they're saying, no, make that for PlayStation VR 2, make it look better. But you get into the sticky situation of, I don't want it to be a Vita. I don't want it to be something that launches with a great launch lineup and then is just left out to dry.
And erases your saves, for
Barrett, we're not going to go down that path right now, right? Yeah. We're talking about PlayStation VR. When Persona 4 Golden VR.
You're the one who brought up the Vita, so I had to bring up, the Vita deleting 25 hours of my game.
I understand. Okay? Oh, Jesus Christ, I understand. All right, I'm sorry. Blessing, you had your hand up a second ago. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I wanted to touch on a similar thing, which is release timing and what is the strategy here? Because talking about the chip shortage, talking about how difficult PS5s are to get right now, and talking about hey, by this fall, right? If PSVR 2 is planned for this fall, let's say, because last week I think the question was, does it come out this year? And I think we all gave an emphatic no. And I especially was like, no, there's no way we see PSVR 2 come out this year with the state of everything.
Taylor, is it coming out this year?
Okay, so I've heard reports that it might come out holiday 2022, and honestly, if it doesn't, I could see it coming out that time of the year. But honestly, I feel like with the chip shortage, I feel like they should just wait till next year, like maybe Q2 next year to release it. But if it comes out let's say they do more state of plays, and let's say we get more information in the summer about the PlayStation VR 2, we get the design, we get the price, and then maybe they'll announce some other games that are coming to PSVR2. I know a lot of people really want Half-Life Alyx, for example, to come. Like everyone keeps saying they want Resident Evil 4 VR. I don't think that's coming to PSVR2. I think Meta put way too much money to get that just for the Quest 2. I can't see that fathomably coming or porting to PlayStation VR2. I think Half-Life Alyx is a safe bet. I also am not expecting port. It feels like that. I know Valve had said in the past that they wanted to put more games like on other platforms. I think that makes the most sense because like I know a lot of people didn't play Half-Life Alyx when it came out because the Valve Index came out, but like, I know it's not just for the Valve Index, but also when you keep in mind that it was for PC VR headsets, like a lot of people weren't going to buy that. And I believe that was around the same time, like that same year, like the Quest 2 came out, the Quest 1 was already out, so it's like, yeah, you could just connect. I think you could also connect the Quest to a PC as well, but again, it's like, why would you go through all that trouble? Yeah, well, again, but why would you do all that when you could just get a Quest 2 and just go on your merry way, just pop the sucker back on, just get started with it. So
and I've talked about it before. It's two things. I mean, there of like number one for the Quest 2, like in Quest in general, like that's a religious experience. If you haven't had the ability to use a Quest or a Quest 2, if you can, go do it. If you have a friend who has it, or if you have, I guess there aren't no demo stations anymore because there's a global pandemic still. But like, if you had the chance, do it, because that is like outrageous. And honestly, it's one of the reasons I think it's one of the reasons my love for PlayStation VR was dampened to an extent, right? Because like, okay, I'm making sacrifices for visual fidelity in the games this thing can run, but it is exactly what I want. And I know, again, we still haven't gotten into the stats of PlayStation VR 2. I know that it also, no more having to talk to the camera, right? It is the 4 cameras on board the headset for the eye tracking. Like the Quest 2 is amazing for that. And why I think, again, it's an uphill battle right now for PlayStation VR to overcome that, even though it is to an extent apples and oranges, right? Because you have a PlayStation 5. If you're even looking at this, you have a PlayStation 5. You're in the PlayStation ecosystem. You want cool PlayStation games, which they're talking about.
Yeah.
Half-Life Alyx, I definitely. I'm sorry, Bless. Keep it 1 second. Half-Life Alyx, I guarantee you get on PlayStation VR 2, and I would expect it to be a launch game, honestly, because when Valve did talk about in the past making for other platforms, they also did all around Half-Life Alyx. They were actually very, they didn't dodge the question in the run up to Half-Life Alyx when people would be like, what about putting on PlayStation VR? And like, we're focusing on this, but we're going to look at everything. We want VR to be viable. We want VR to be a big deal. So I guarantee that's coming. Sorry, Bless, back to your point.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the chip shortage in 2022 thing, I think to piggyback a little bit off of what you said there, I think that is the power of PSVR compared to other VR platforms. I think it is the library, because I'm right there with you in terms of me getting an Oculus Quest, me using my Oculus Quest and going, oh, this is the superior VR experience than anything. Not just PSVR. I'm talking about like any VR headset I've used. Out of all of them, I think Oculus Quest has been the easiest. Has been like, it's powerful as a standalone thing, right? It's not like using Google Cardboard where the experience is super limited. It does everything good enough in a way where it's like, oh shit, yeah, like this is difficult to pull off in VR. They pulled it off with the Oculus Quest, and it's so hard. It's been so hard to go back to playing something like Beat Saber on my PSVR versus just playing it on Oculus Quest when it's so easy to set up. So that's like number one. But then also going back to the date thing, right? I think, I still stand by last week talking about how like, I don't think this year, though them talking about it first and foremost at CES and presenting it the way they're presenting it. Greg, I think you give the good point of looking at PS4 and PSVR and the rollout there and comparing that to what that might look like here. I think the thing that I have to ask is are they happy with that, right? Is that a past PlayStation? Is that like a early to mid PS4 PlayStation versus current PlayStation, where when we first heard about the PS5, or when the PS5 was presented to us in a bigger way, right? Like we got the Wired articles the year before, and then we got into 2020, 2021? God, time. We got into 2020, and then we started to see more stage presentations, right? We saw the Mark Cerny thing with the fake audience. We then got the summer presentation of like, here's the PS5, here's all this shit, and then by the fall we get the PS5. With them talking about PSVR 2 in this way at CES on a stage, presenting specs, presenting controller, talking about the games that are going to be for it, that strikes me as modern PlayStation talking about something that's going to come out this fall. And it makes me wonder if last time around, even though PSVR was seemingly even more successful than they thought it was going to be, if they still want it to be even more successful than that, given what we've even talked about here about like, multiplayer games and user base, and like if you want certain things to thrive on PSVR, you have to have an audience there with it. And I think a good way, in a perfect world where chip shortage wasn't a thing and there already wasn't a struggle, I could see the vision for PSVR2 being, all right, let's have this thing grow with the PS5. Let's put it out the year after, and we're going to have it there the whole generation so that the audience can be there. And the audience, by the time we get to the end of the generation, there's a sizable enough audience there that developers don't have to worry about putting out a multiplayer game and trying to sustain it, right? Like the audience is already there. I wonder if they identify that, and if the plan is, hey, ships ahead, let's just go business as usual and like just say fuck it and we'll deal with the shortages, but we want this thing out there because we want it to grow. I think that is a question of how much do they really want this thing to come out close to the PS5. I think is the thing there.
But so I no pun intended, I worry about the optics of all of it, of just like if it is that you go into Walmart, Target, you name it, any store, and PS5 still sold out, but there are 900 just PlayStation VR2s sitting on the shelf, right? Like that's a weird look. And then for I'd like to buy this for my son. Does he have a PlayStation 5? No, I'm trying to get that. Well, why would I get this thing? And I know the grandmother argument of buying the wrong thing or whatever is such an old outdated video game thing, but still, at least optically, it's a problem. Let alone the fact of like, developers, how much money is actually in there. PlayStation has to sit there and make sure that they're the ones who are, pushing it and funding it and making people make games for the thing. It's such a weird thing of I understand announcing, I understand getting behind it. I still don't think this year. Like I just think that would be not crazy, because there's the counter argument to this is, of course, all right, PlayStation 5s are in the wild. There are not as many as we want, but guess what? They are out there and they are in hardcore gamers' hands. They are in. If we still did Destination PlayStation, these would be the people going. Or I'm sorry, if we still did PSX, these would be the people going to PSX. They are in it for PlayStation. So why not launch a device that is, obviously we're not going to make 3 million of at launch. We're going to put out that are just for this thing. But then again, it's this numbers of how do you finance that? How do you make that a compelling argument for people to make games for it?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that too. And I think to determine the success of the PlayStation VR 2, I don't think it's fair to compare it to like the original PlayStation VR, because I think some people are thinking that, or at least comparing it to the Quest 2. And it's like if you think about the VR market, the VR gaming market, and VR gaming is still pretty niche. I mean, I know that Oculus has definitely streamlined it and mainstreamed it a lot. It started with the Rift. I know a lot of people think it started with the Quest. I think it started with the Rift, but for sure, you get the point. Like, Oculus has definitely been a trailblazer in making VR gaming desirable in this industry. And when the original PlayStation VR came out, it was popular, and it was a very obvious reason why. I mean, the PlayStation VR was just easy. It was there. The PlayStation 4 was a very popular console during its generation. It was easy for people to go, okay, I don't need to buy a gaming PC to play VR games. I could just I don't have to spend upwards of $1,000 to buy a headset and a laptop or a gaming desktop. I have a PS4. I could just spend what was it, $399 when it launched?
$399.
I could just spend that. Yeah, I could just spend that, and then obviously they have to buy those really dated PlayStation Move controllers, which I hated using.
They didn't even make more of it at the beginning. Remember, they didn't make more of them. This is such a
I still have a PlayStation Move controller that has the mini USB mini port, not even the micro one. It was so hard to find a charger for it.
Yeah, they were just I hate the PlayStation Move controllers when they were and the fact that so many games had to use it just frustrated me. I was like, that was one of the reasons why I preferred to just play on my HTC Vive over just the original PlayStation VR. That's another reason why it's hard for me to just take it out, because I was like, why would I do that why would I do that when I have an HTC Vive? Why would I do that when I have a Quest 2? It just doesn't make sense. So I think with what the original PlayStation VR was trying to accomplish, it succeeded in that. Was it the best headset? No, it didn't have to be, but it was the most accessible. It was the one that kind of got people to say, you know what, I will give VR a shot. And yes, it was a little disappointing. I wish they had a little bit more first-party support, because I felt like it just, I mean, when I think about how many first-party games, I mean, the first one really just comes to mind is just Astrobot Rescue Mission, which is a good game, don't get me wrong. But I just think about how Sony just wasn't really all in. And a lot of the games that I know a lot of people were playing, they're like, yeah, I really like Beat Saber. I was like, okay, but I can go play that on another head. I could play this on my HTC Vive. I can play this everywhere.
Blood and Truth, though.
Yeah.
No, that was a good game. But like, and when I see people say like, oh, I can't wait to play Beat Saber on the PSVR2, I was like, you guys do realize that Beat Games is owned by Meta now. Like, I don't think that's coming to PSVR2. If anything, we'll get it through backwards compatibility. They haven't announced whether or not it's going to be backwards compatible. I think in this case, it should be, especially if that launch time. It has to be. If the launch lineup is just like maybe 3 or 4 games, I think if they launch with like 3 or 4 games that take advantage of the haptics and all the stuff that the headset does, put original PlayStation VR, titles as backwards compatible, I think that's a very compelling case to get a lot of early adopters, because I think what's going to determine the success of the PlayStation VR 2 is not going to be how it sells compared to the Quest 2. That's an unfair comparison. It's going to determine on how it can convince people that own a PlayStation 5 that are going to look at this and see what it offers and see what kind of games are taking advantage of that tech and go, you know what? There's no sense in me buying a Quest 2. I'm going to buy this PlayStation VR 2 because I already have a PlayStation 5. So I think if it can win its base that already has a PS5, it's already won. It doesn't need to compete with the Quest 2. It can and to some degrees if we want to talk about exclusives, but it is very unfair to do that right now when you think about the fact that there's only one game that's been confirmed for it. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing that's hampering it, I think, is itself and is like the world state more than anything, right? I think you're spot on in terms of like it's not necessarily about competing with other headsets. It's about selling as many people who already have PS5s on the headset. And I think a lot of that is gonna come through the library, which like I'm right there with you that like I think first party support on PSVR could have been more with how strong PlayStation first party is. And going into PSVR 2, I would hope, fingers crossed, that they're going to lean into it even more. And I think Horizon Call of the Mountain. That's right. That's right.
That's it.
Horizon Call of the Mountain. Now, we were talking about this last week that like, oh man, Horizon names is so hard to memorize. Man, wait until they announce another Horizon game, and they've done it. And now I'm like, shit. Now I gotta memorize what this is. It took me like 6 months to get Forbidden West. But like this next Horizon game, I think is a good sign in terms of, we want to take advantage of our IP, and we want to give actual first party support to this thing, because when I think of PSVR 1, I do think of Astrobot. I do think of Blood and Truth also, which is first party. I think of Trover Saves the Universe, which wasn't first party, but I think might have been exclusive at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then also I think of Tetris Effect as well, and I think of quite a few games that either were exclusive or timed exclusive at a point.
For sure.
That lended toward a very strong library, and I think library is where PlayStation really shines in terms of anything.
And that was one of the questions was, what do you want from PlayStation VR 2? Kebabs wrote into patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and said backwards compatibility with PSVR 1 titles. Having such a strong lineup would be amazing. There's tons of great titles like Astrobot, Moss, Iron Man, and Beat Saber, but also PS4 games with VR support like No Man's Sky, Star Wars Squadrons, Hitman 3, and the Wipeout Collection. It'd be amazing for PlayStation VR 2's first year to have these titles available on PS Plus to encourage players to dive back into the back catalog of games. And again, for so long I talked about with PlayStation VR 1 adding PlayStation VR games to PS Plus to make it kind of a Trojan horse, where if you're doing the smart thing and not being Janet Garcia, happy birthday, and downloading, at least redeeming the games that are there every month, you'd have this eventually a library of VR games, even if you don't have the VR unit, to look and go, you know what, I saw a VR on sale, why not pick it up because of this? Now it works the same way of they have to have backwards compatibility. You assume they would, since PlayStation 4 games work on PlayStation 5. Is it that hard to make the move understand, that this isn't a move wand, it's this controller now or whatever? I remember when we made this argument about something else, about a third-party VR game, they said it would be easy. Some developer wrote in as easy as video game development ever is. Anyways, though, if you were to sit there and you're like, again, I bought a PlayStation 5 somehow. I was up at 5 a.m. I got this thing. I'm PlayStation through and through, but PlayStation VR didn't do it for me. Now you have this PlayStation VR or PlayStation 5. They put out PlayStation VR 2. You would hope that if the launch lineup looks rad as fuck, there's all these cool games that are in stunning super HD and whatever. You're inside Horizon. You go, well, can I justify it for 3 games? You don't have to. You can say, well, they have all these other things. I asked, what do you guys want again for PlayStation VR 2? What's your dream PlayStation VR 2 game? So many people wrote in with stuff. Greg Miller's personal thing is, I still want to platinum Iron Man in VR. But my problem is that the load times were just so atrocious on Iron Man VR that I do not want to replay levels on a harder difficulty and sit there for them to load. So like, if they're able to say that it's backwards compatible and with the processing power of the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2, load times are so much quicker for old games, for brand new games, like that is a huge step forward for what this device does.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, 100% agree. And like, I think the inside out tracking thing is huge too. I know we haven't dug deep into all the features, but like I think that's going to be a big thing. Especially because I remember going back to the Move controller and all, in that conversation, I've had so many issues in the PSVR in terms of one of my previous places, I had like a big old window that would always shine light during a sunny day, and half the time my PlayStation wouldn't be able to like track the Move wands because, or even like I think sometimes even the DualSense because my room was too bright.
So
And like,
there's a lot of
go
people who haven't used PlayStation VR, maybe didn't keep up with it. Taylor, explain PlayStation VR and how it tracked you in the game versus PlayStation VR 2.
Yeah, so with the way that tracking worked with the PlayStation VR, the original one, it used like LEDs, like gyroscopes, accelerometers, and it had the PlayStation camera as well. So there was a lot of different things that it was using to like kind of track your motions. So, if we're comparing more to like what the PSVR 2 is going to do, it's more akin to how Quest 2 does your tracking. And then there's also the eye tracking thing, but that's like an exclusive thing for the PlayStation VR 2. We'll talk about that in a second. But, tracking is going to be a lot more seamless with just having those built-in cameras on the headset. It's going to make it easier to play the games. It's going to make it easier to just enjoy the experience, because I feel like, first off, if anyone who's owned a PlayStation VR owns one, they know how much of a pain. There's like that little black box that came and you had to plug in all these cords. Like I remember the first time I did it when I got one, and I was like, why is there so many cable? Like I know that like a lot of headsets, like I said, I have an HTC Vive, so I remember how much it was like setting up the base stations and things like that. So where it was easy for like say a Valve Index or a HTC Vive or even the Oculus Rift, where it's like, oh, you have like two sensors. It's like, oh no, you got this camera, you got the LEDs, you got all this other stuff that the PlayStation VR needs.
If you're using the PlayStation, if you're using the PS4 controller, obviously to see the light bar. If you're using the Move ones, you had to read the bulbs on top, which meant that yes, like Blessing's talking about, if you had sunlight going in there, getting in the way of they're making the lights not as bright, then it wouldn't see it as well. You'd have bad tracking. If you got out of the frame of the camera, there's so many times. I forget which game it was. I was trying to reach for something on the ground and I punched the floor so hard because I was trying to get down to it, but it just couldn't read it no matter how I put it. And so PlayStation VR 2 having the 4 cameras on the headset mean it eliminates all that and reads everything uniquely and better, and you'll be able to see, or it'll see what's going on and be able to read what you're doing and use it in the world that way, rather than it having to film you.
Which is a way better experience, right? Like I use the light shining in my room as one example, but there are plenty of examples where I'm playing a game. I forget the name of I forget the name of the game, but it was a game that we played year one of me joining and bringing back PS Love You. Of like, it was a game where you had to look down out of an office building. You were like high up on the floor, and like monsters would be climbing up. Look back, grab something in the room, and then throw it down. I forget the name of it, but like fun game. Sucked on PSVR because there's not like backtracking on PSVR, right? Because your PlayStation camera is in front of you ideally, and you're looking back, and then you lose tracking because your hand gets lost because you're putting it behind you essentially. That doesn't happen with inside out tracking, or at least hopefully that doesn't happen with inside out tracking, because the camera can see 360.
Yeah, I for what's worth, I haven't had an issue with it, but if anyone else has, feel free to let us know. But I haven't, but
with inside out tracking, right? You're saying?
Oh God, now I you know what? I keep telling myself, I was like, I don't think I care to.
Did
think
she
just
disappear?
Because it's
she's back.
You're breaking
up.
She
disappeared for like half a second.
Oh, yeah.
You don't care what? You don't care too?
I don't care too much. I mean, I do care about the design, but I think I am more curious about how the overall like design of it looks, because I mean, I liked the head strap on the original. What's your thoughts on the original PlayStation VR head strap and stuff? I think it was okay. I thought it wasn't the best. I thought it was all right.
I liked it until it started breaking down. Like I'm one of the people who with over so much use all the plastic or whatever, the faux leather, I don't know how they call this stuff. The material that was the pads for your head, it starts to crack and fall apart. So now if you put it on, I get little black specks on it all the time. Like, it's like there. It's like, well, this is like disgusting to use now on top of not being at all a modern experience.
For me, it's just there's a lot going on it. When you put it on your head, it feels big and bulky in a way that at the start of it I was down with, because I think that's just where VR was at. And I think that was just like that was the sphere, right? Now, having used other VR headsets, I would prefer something that's way more tight, right? Like I also know that for me, playing PSVR and playing Beat Saber in PSVR was such a thing, because like I would sweat, I would fog up the lens, like in the way that's constructed, I feel like it would trap in like a lot of condensation.
I'd always get the condensation up on the bottoms of the lenses and have to like pull it off and cool it down and put it back on.
Yeah, and VR is great for a lot of like fitness games too. And so with that being the case, you don't want that, right? Like you want something that can handle that kind of usage, because even after playing Beat Saber, I would mess with this game called it's called like Boxing VR essentially. I forget the exact name, but I think it was Boxing VR.
Was it
might have been Fit XR.
It could have been that, or it could have been, what was it? There was another VR box, Knockout League. There was also Creed Rise to Glory. Those were boxing games.
Creed Rise to Glory, I think I might have tried for one time, but I think the one I got into might have been called Fit XR, and what that was like, it's essentially like Beat Saber, but it is specifically for working out, and it is boxing motions essentially. And so you're doing that, but on a rail, like on Beat Saber. But I know for the people who I know who have used VR, plenty of them were using VR for like that purpose of like working out or playing games that involve some kind of fitness, because it's a great way to kind of involve yourself in that. And with that, I think you really want something that breathes and doesn't trap in all that condensation and doesn't like weigh on your head, because that I feel like that makes things just so difficult.
Well, that was the thing of like, you're talking about Beat Saber, which I did on PlayStation VR for the longest time until I got a Quest. And then it was Supernatural VR, which is a workout program on Quest that I used too. And like when I got really into that at the start of the pandemic, I ordered a different face mask and stuff for it, like because it was interchangeable. So I got one that was like better at absorbing or blocking out sweat. And it was like all so easy, so great. It didn't fog up the lenses. It was like you're saying, tight. And that was still then I'd go back and put on the PlayStation VR thing, and it would be that, like this feels like a Fisher Price toy. This feels like it's not constructed as well as that, which again was a strength when it launched. And this is the whole thing with tech, right, Taylor? Of like when it launched, PlayStation VR felt good. It was easy to put on and off. Like the buttons were right there. It was easy to make sense compared to an Oculus that I could, or the Valve. No. Yeah, the Oculus. The original Rift, right? Where it was like
the Rift or
the original ones that I didn't have much experience with. I understood this one. And so like, as you looked at PlayStation VR 2, that I'm right there with you. If I want to see what it looks like, I want to know single cable's fine. Yes. No pass-through box, right? No pass-through box that also doesn't do HDR. Remember that was a big deal when it was like, cool, here's the PlayStation 4 Pro. Awesome. By the way, if you use the PlayStation VR, you don't get the benefits of the Pro. Like, what the fuck? Well, then I'm never going to plug in the PlayStation VR.
Can we talk about eye tracking? Because that sounds dope as hell. Like, Taylor, are there already headsets out there that use eye tracking? And then also, like, where are you at the eye tracking in PSVR?
And what is eye tracking if people don't know?
All right. So first off, we could talk about that. So first off, let's just talk about the eye tracking. So the eye tracking, if you look at the chart that is in the feature I wrote, eye tracking is just like a PSVR2 exclusive thing. To my knowledge, there aren't any other VR headsets that I know. Like I know the Valve Index doesn't do it. So like or if there's like another headset that does it, that's not even for gaming, maybe that exists. But also, who buys a VR headset if they're not just gaming? I mean, I guess maybe for like experiences or
for the popular headsets.
For the metaverse, I got to get in there and go shopping in Walmart.
I don't want to talk about metaverse. I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, so with with the eye tracking, it detects like the motion of your eyes. So you could look at, like, let's say you're just looking at in a different direction from whatever your character's looking at, then it'll track that moment. It'll track your movement from whatever it is you're looking at. So it also, and like looking at just like the features that it can allow, just like adding an additional input for how your eyes are kind of moving inside the headset. I think that adds a lot more immersion than what we've seen in other VR headsets to date. Because like I don't know if any of you have played like games like Resident Evil 4 VR or things like that. So like I think it would have been cool to have something like that for in this instance. But obviously Quest 2 doesn't have it. So with the eye tracking, it'll add a lot more immersion, and it can allow for a lot more of like expression and realism. And I wish that we kind of got more of like a demo of how the eye tracking will work, like maybe from Call of the Mountain, if they had showed that off. But I think with how what it is supposed to do and how it fits with PlayStation's kind of like overall tech focus with the haptics, the adaptive triggers, the fact that the headset has this really good resolution and all that stuff. I feel Sony's, I don't know, like I think about this feature in particular, like, gosh, I'm glad you brought this up, Leslie, because I think about this. I was like, is Sony really all in on VR? I hope they are, because this eye tracking, it sounds good, right?
It sounds really cool, and it sounds forward thinking, and I struggle a little bit to like see what the application is going to be in the actual games. I'm sure like they already have ideas for it, especially since they have like first party games in the process for PSVR 2. Knowing Sony, they're gonna find ways to use it no matter what. But I think it sounds dope as hell. What's up, Greg?
It is dope as hell. It is awesome. I do think it is, again, them pushing this forward, doing something different. You know what I mean? Like, let's actually commit to it. Taylor, you mentioned, of course, your chart from IGN.com, where we should go look at it. And how, the pixels per eye, when you compare PSVR 2, PSVR, Oculus Quest 2, and the Valve Index, PlayStation VR 2 has the most pixels per eye and stuff. But for eye tracking, what I think will be interesting about it, Bless, is if people are using it in their games and know it's there, which you assume PlayStation first party would be, then characters are going to comment on what you're seeing or what you're doing. But then also I would imagine it's going to be similar to what we saw with Horizon Zero Dawn, if you remember. Because remember, after Horizon Zero Dawn came out, they did a whole tech presentation of when you turn Aloy and the cone of vision goes like this, it realizes you're turning and starts populating all that data. But behind you, it wasn't there. That way they could focus it all there. And that's how you were getting such dense, crazy worlds, right? I don't think that it is by coincidence that Guerrilla and granted Five Sprite are working on this Horizon game, and they're talking about stuff like that. Because I would imagine as it starts tracking my eye to see where I'm going, it's going to move detail that way and spin it from the side, so we get more detailed words. That's what I'm guessing would be happening. At least from the tech they've already used.
What's interesting too is that the PlayStation blog had noted that that it can interact more, like the eye tracking will allow players to interact more intuitively in new and lifelike ways and heightened emotional response. So I would love to see a story-driven kind of narrative VR game that really fully takes advantage of this eye tracking, because I feel like if they can execute a game that offers this type of emotional realism that you couldn't necessarily get from a Quest 2 or heck, even from just like a normal traditional conservative console experience, that is pretty, like, honestly, like, I would love to see a game like that being shown and getting, award nominations at the Game Awards or something. I think I think that there's and also too, I don't know why I keep thinking about the metaverse just reading that, but just like the high note.
Well, I was gonna bring up like metaverse type stuff, right? Because like there are apps like VR Chat and other social apps that people use in VR where it is like, hey, I'm hanging out with my friends, right? Or hey, me and my friends have on a bunch of different Fortnite skins essentially, and we're hanging out and talking to each other. Now I can easily see like eye tracking becoming a factor there, where it is, hey, no, eye tracking is a thing that we can use to actually like give your character a bit more character, right? And now you're like, whoever you're playing with, your co-op partner can see that like you're staring at them or you're looking elsewhere, and you can actually have like interaction. But then there are also games like Bear was just showing on the video, Before Your Eyes, which uses things Jana can explain it better because she actually loves this game, but I believe you play this by blinking, right?
Yeah, you blink. Yeah.
Ooh.
And so like, I mean, you can do stuff like that as well.
And I think of something like, again, I'm giving you not a great example, but like something like LA Noire. Remember how that was all about reading facial expressions and seeing stuff? What do you do if a game's analyzing you that way, right? And it is like you're trying to piece together what's going on, but you're looking around the room like, why are you looking over there? Look at me. You know what I mean? Like, I even think of something as silly as like, stuff from the Dark Pictures anthology, right? Where it is so much of like, oh, interesting. Why'd you pick that? Like, if it was what you're being pulled to in a room as soon as you walk in, like, I noticed you looked at the butterfly or whatever. There's interesting applications there from a narrative thing that, again, I think would give you the reason to pick up the PlayStation VR 2 and play stuff. It is an experience you can't get.
That's where I'm like, you've taken it too far. You're right. Like when you start like reading like my emotions and like telling me that I'm lying and shit because you track my eyes a certain way. That's where I'm like, okay, video game's gone too far. I can't do this anymore.
It's like, wait, are you like have an NPC looking at you like, hey, are you okay? You're looking a little sus. Or oh my god, what if they just randomly said, hey, we're gonna make Final Fantasy 14 online for PSVR 2?
I mean, honestly, like Among Us is coming to VR. I would love hey, you can see people's faces. You can see how their eyes are like.
God, can you imagine that?
Yeah, as they try to lie.
I would buy Among Us VR just if they had that feature on PlayStation. If they put it on PlayStation VR 2 with like that type of like feature, I would double dip and get it just so I could try it, because I just think that'd be funny. Like you're like, have your eyes go, wait a minute, you said you were in electrical. Like, that sounds a little sus. And then just have your eyes kind of like squint and just be like, are you sure about that? It just like, I don't know. There's so much. There's like, I feel there's endless opportunities with what they could do. I think that they could definitely add more narrative driven VR games using this feature, especially with like choices or just like emotional weight. Like, wouldn't that be wild? Like if they had like I know this will probably be like a long shoot, but I'm just thinking about The Last of Us. Like, imagine like just having like a Last of Us game where they like you're just like crying and just like all this other stuff, and it like it reads and just like, you know, inputs that. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like there's so many endless opportunities. I feel like this is like a whole conversation on its own front, but I feel with what it promises, what it can deliver, and thinking about the potential that developers could have, because this hasn't really been done. The only other headset that might do it is there's rumors that Valve is working on its own standalone VR headset. We don't know if it's when it's coming out, all that stuff. We don't know what features it has, but there's rumored to have eye tracking. If that has eye tracking, then that would, you know, but again, like, this hasn't been done. The Quest 2 does not have this. So this kind of feature definitely would put, you know, Sony as like a trailblazer on the VR space in its own way, because again, you can't get this on the Quest 2. Yeah, it's more convenient to play the Quest 2, especially if you don't have a PlayStation 5. But then look at what Sony is doing and offering. I think they brought a lot of value to the table for why PlayStation 5 owners should early adopt, in my opinion.
No, 100%. And I think, you know, you go to something like the DualSense, and you talked about at the top of the show how much you like that controller and how well it can be used. And we've talked about it, you know, to death on this show, whether we're talking about Astrobot Ride, whether we're talking about the bowstring in certain games, whatever we're, you know, doing with it, that all these marketing buzz examples we heard before were like eye rolly, but then you play something like Returnal and you're like, holy shit, like this is a different feel. This does feel different. This does put it on a different level for it. And so if you're able to go with PlayStation VR too and be like, yep, it is not wireless, but you're getting this visual fidelity that you're not getting from the other ones. You know, the new controllers are the same haptics as the DualSense, so you're having all these different experiences from it. You start really building out, I think, to what people want from it, which is its own library. If it's backwards compatible, great, but its own library that then has its, you know, support that is there for them, that they're out there. You know, Matt D wrote into patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and said, for me to realistically consider purchasing PlayStation VR 2, I'd like to see a healthier release calendar, not just a series of launch titles, but games to expect over the coming years to give me confidence the platform won't be an afterthought. Again, if they're able to come in and have something different, whether it's eye tracking, and then it is that they're able to announce, hey, here are all these third parties that are, you know, imagine what, you know, a publisher like Annapurna, if they're going to go talk to their developers, then be like, hey, this eye tracking is really cool. What narrative things could you tell? PlayStation's giving money away for this ideas in games. Where can we go from that? Now, speaking of giving away money for ideas in games and things like that, you can go to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames, kick us a few bucks right in to be part of the show, just like Matt D did. Of course, watch live just like PSV, Madeline, Omega 3, Joshy G, Keegan Hill all are, and do all that stuff. You'd also get the show ad free, but guess what, Jack? You're not listening on patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. So let's hear from our sponsors. Kick off 2022 with a better checking account with no monthly fees, no overdraft fees, no foreign transaction fees, and no service fees. Get all that and then some with Chime, an award-winning app and debit card. They've also got over 60,000 fee-free in-network ATMs all over the place, like at most Walgreens, 7-Elevens, or CVS's. You can access your money when you need it, where you need it. Make sure you make the first good decision of the new year and join over 10 million people using Chime. Sign up takes only 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/KFgames. That's chime.com/KFgames. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Get fee-free transactions at a Money Pass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Otherwise, out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. Sometimes pay anyone instant transfers can be delayed. The recipient must use a valid debit card or be a Chime member to claim funds. Relationships aren't perfect, and MeUndies is celebrating our imperfectly perfect matches with their new Valentine's Day collection. I don't have to read the ad anymore. I can just tell you I'm wearing MeUndies, ladies and gentlemen. Always have been, always will. You know, not always, I guess. But what happened is I had a bunch of underwear I didn't like that much, and then I tried a couple pairs of MeUndies, and I was like, these are amazing. And I ordered a whole bunch of MeUndies, and now it's all I wear. And I am due for more. Maybe I'll do it here. Back to the ad. Gifting underwear for Valentine's Day? Wow, real groundbreaking. Express your one-of-a-kind relationship when you match your bottom half to your better half in fun limited edition prints. And if you're single, don't worry. You can mingle in matching pairs with your friends or even get dog hoodies and buddy bands to match your four-legged pal. MeUndies has a great offer for our listeners. For a limited time only, get 25% off your first order of matching pairs for Valentine's Day. And as a first-time purchaser, you can also get 15% off and free shipping right now to your door. To get 25% off matching pairs, 15% off your first order, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/KindaFunny. That's MeUndies.com/KindaFunny. Guess what I use all the time, ladies and gentlemen? DoorDash. That's right. I come down here, I record the shows, I come upstairs, Jen's taking care of our newborn, is a 3-month-old, our 3-month-old, and guess what? We're both too tired to make food, so we order on DoorDash. We do it all the time, and you should too. You've got back-to-back meetings, errands to run, and chores to take care of. What's the secret to clearing your to-do list? A little help from DoorDash. Along with the restaurants you love, you can now get groceries and other essential items delivered to your door with DoorDash. Get drinks, snacks, and other household items in under an hour. With over 300,000 partners, you can support your neighborhood go-tos. Choose from your favorite national chains like Popeyes, Chipotle, and Cheesecake Factory. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when they download, that's you, download the DoorDash app and enter the code GAMES2021. That's 25% off, up to a $10 value, and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code GAMES2021. Don't forget, that code is GAMES2021 for 25% off your first order with DoorDash, subject to change. Terms apply. All right, we're back. And we're on this conversation of money. Taylor, how much is PlayStation VR 2 going to cost? With its better pixels per eye, its OLED display, its inside-out tracking, its eye tracking, it's all this stuff, which all sound awesome. Is it going to be ungodly expensive?
Look, I don't think it's going to be that expensive. I would be baffled if it cost more than a PlayStation VR 2. I don't think it is. I know some people think that because of the specs and the high fidelity that it's going to cost about as much as a Valve Index. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. I can't see this costing more than $500. If I had to say a safe price point, I could see this maybe being $399. I could see it also. I could argue for $299, but I feel
holy shit, that'd be insane. Right now, PlayStation VR 2 launched at, PlayStation VR launched at $399. Quest 2 has 2 different models. You can get it for $299, you can get it for $399. And I would think if you can get PlayStation VR 2 to $299, that'd be insane.
If they could get it at $299, that'd be why. I think that they'd probably break the internet, just like what was the retailer that prematurely opened up PlayStation 5 pre-orders and everybody on the internet just kind of broke. And I was like, it might have been Walmart. I don't know why. I think it was Target. I think Target. One of the other was like, okay, F it, we'll do it now too. But yeah, and also, Greg, fun fact, because we didn't put the Vive Pro 2 on the chart originally, I did have it on there, but I cut it because I was like, okay, we're getting too nitty gritty on this, but it actually has a higher pixel per eye than the PlayStation VR 2.
IGN lying to me as always. What a surprise!
No, it's in the article. I wrote.
I'm not an article guy. I'm a graph guy. I see the graph. I look at the graph.
The graph right here. The graph right here says this and that.
Thank you.
And this, and that's all I got to pay attention to.
Yeah,
okay?
you know what I mean?
I don't read words.
I actually have it pulled. I actually have it pulled from here. However, it is important to note that the headset gets. I'm sorry. However, it is important to note that when the headset gets a street date, it will not have the highest pixel per eye count as HTC Vive's Pro 2, not shown above, still takes that crown with its 5K head-mounted display that offers 2448 by 2448 per eye resolution. So there you go, Taylor. Keeping us honest, but we're talking about what's on the market right now. But again, this is the problem. It's all going to change. Right,
yeah, it'll probably change. I mean, hey, I know that Meta is also working on another headset, but from what I'm hearing, it might not be so much gaming focus. It's probably going to be a metaverse thing. I don't know. We don't know a whole lot except for the fact that they were working on it and they announced that last year. But if we're focusing on the now, which is the now, the here and the now, then yeah, I think if they want to be competitive, I think it's probably going to be $399. I don't know why. I wish it. I would love it to be $299, but I feel like in my heart, it's telling me it's going to be the same price as the digital edition of the PS5. I just can't see this costing more than a PS5 because I feel like because it is tethered to the PlayStation 5, because this is an optional accessory for a game console, there's just no way it's going to cost more than the actual hardware needed to tether and power it. There's just no way. I think. Well, I think I could see an argument for 500. I could see an argument for 299, but I think 399, maybe 349. I could see that, honestly. But that's just my opinion.
Blessing, what's your opinion? Where do you think? Oh, damn, you got me before I get Blessing. I think it's going to be $399. I think you come in there and you try to hit what you did with PlayStation VR beforehand, because you've shown that people who believe in it, or at least want to believe in it, will pay for that. And again, that's already been a test for then, the hardcore PlayStation audience that you assume are the people with PlayStation 5s that would be the ones who would go out and do this. So I think that's a safe bet. I think if you can go lower than that, holy shit. And I also wouldn't be surprised if you went higher. I could see 449. I could see 449, 450. Get in there and try to get it there.
I think there's a level of, once you get high enough, it's like, why is this tethered then? Just make it its own standalone thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I stand at $399 as well. 300 would be wild. I think 299 would be such a good, like, oh, they did it, right? Like that is another like highlight in a PlayStation presentation, if they're able to say, hey, we're putting this out for $299. And I think that would be a way for them to, one, I'm sure that they'll probably lose some money if they went that route, but also that would seem to be a play of, get this into as many hands as possible, people who are in the PlayStation audience that have a PS5. Let's flood the streets with PSVR2s and really make it so that the software can thrive on it. I think that would be a huge move, but I also think that with the original PSVR releasing at $399, they already know that they can be successful with a $399 PSVR, right? They already know that, hey, people aren't going to be too beat up about it. People aren't going to complain. People aren't going, like, of course, not everybody's going to be able to get it. And I think that's a thing that they would deal with either way. And so I think $399 is a safe bet for it. But man, I would love for it to be $299.
What'll be fascinating with it is marketing and how they pitch this. And it's a tired Greg Miller story, but I remember Shuhei coming through and talking about this back in the day at the GDC when they announced it, and being like, listen, this, we were celebrating the 20th year of PlayStation at the time. He's like, this is not the 20th year of PlayStation VR. This is like us launching the PS1. This is us starting something from the ground up and where it's going to go, right? And I think this plays into a question L2 Larson wrote in with to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. This is more of a big picture question for VR in general, but something I really want to figure out before PlayStation VR 2. How do you make time for VR games? I have my original PSVR and I love it, but I feel like my game sessions are few and far between because I'm worried that something is bound to pull me out of the game. This can make me feel like it's not even worth starting a game. This makes it tough to keep any kind of consistency in my VR game time. Do y'all have tips and tricks for meaningfully adding VR to the gaming rotation? We've all talked about our headsets, or PlayStation VR headsets for the argument, being in the closet. I wonder if for PlayStation VR 2, this is something they tackle head on. And it is that in the same way, PlayStation, like we've talked about this throughout PlayStation, PS, I Love You, right? And Gamescast and Kind of Funny. But like when you think of a PlayStation first party now, when you think of PlayStation Studios and their cool polished intro, you're thinking of a high quality, usually single player AAA video game, right? You know what a PlayStation exclusive for the most part is, right? Especially as you look at Horizon, something like Last of Us, God of War. I wonder if with PlayStation VR 2, they try to really set that bar for VR, where they're like, PlayStation VR 2 isn't meant to be this thing that everybody is going to be an event. It is going to be a blockbuster movie in the same way now, especially during COVID, there's only certain things that'll bring you to a theater. There's only certain games that we're going to put out first party wise that are going to be something like the Horizon VR game, right? That are going to be something that justify this price tag on the system that's already niche, right? You have to start spinning the story to some direction of, you're going to have your third parties, you're going to have the back catalog, you're going to have plenty of games to play if you just want an experience. But when we're talking about what PlayStation VR 2 is going to be defined as, it's going to be defined by these from the ground up PlayStation experiences with the eye tracking and these visuals that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I think they're really gonna have to push it as like this is PSVR 2 almost feels like the PS2 to like the PS1 of PSVR 1, where it is like, hey, here are the better looking games. Here's us putting even more support behind it. I think there has to be a Spider-Man game for it, and figuring that out is probably gonna be difficult in terms of how do you make a Spider-Man game that doesn't make people throw up and like get nauseous. It might have to be it sounds like a bad idea, but like it might have to be a Peter Parker game or like some other form of like, all right, how can we make a game game that we can put Spider-Man in the title, but isn't necessarily you swinging from the streets of New York. Maybe it is almost like a Telltale Batman game where it is like it's Spider-Man, but it's more of the narrative aspects of it or something along those lines. But I think you have to do that, right? I think you have to. You might have to figure out how to do a God of War. You might have to figure out how to translate these things, and I also think you have to take studios that are, I think, in the in between of like, all right, what are the studios and PlayStation studios that are you know, out there putting out console games, but aren't necessarily like the Ghost of Tsushimas and the God of Wars and all those things, right? Like, what is Pixel Opus up to? Because we know
it's
them
definitely
for making
them,
for making smaller titles. We've talked about this before, but I think Concrete Genie had a VR mode. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like.
Too.
So I think you can expect stuff from them possibly in VR. I think even Media Molecule is on the table in terms of, all right, you guys did Dreams, you guys put it out, it was good, but like, hey, your games might be better suited for this, or like, you know, as PlayStation, we want to continue to push like the bigger and the biggest and the boldest games in our first party, and we think you guys might actually be able to do that for VR as opposed to just regular like PS5 standard console games. I could see a lot of, I guess, recontextualization of what PlayStation first party looks like to make that split make more sense, and also to give PSVR2 the support it needs, because like we talked about with VR1 and with PS Vita, rest in peace to Barrett's Vita, like you need the support or else you're not gonna work, right? Like you're not gonna be successful if you can't get that support. And so I think it's gonna be a combination of partnering with third parties. I'm sure like out of one of the third parties, maybe some of them between like the ones that have been announced with Jade Raymond Studio and Deviation and Firewalk, I wouldn't be surprised if one or multiple of those, or if there's ones that we don't even know about that are working on first party PlayStation Studios PSVR games. I think there are a lot of options on the table.
And remember too that at the presentation they said 17 PlayStation first parties are working on it, and they put up a bunch of logos from Ben, Bluepoint, Firespite, Gorilla, Housemarque, Insomniac, London, Media Molecule, Naughty Dog, Nix's better be Avengers, Pixel Opus, Polyphony, right? San Diego, Santa Monica, Sucker Punch, and then one very tiny one I can't read.
And I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of modes too. I think that's a
for sure.
Way that we got Resident Evil 7 VR. I think you're gonna see
Ghost
way
of Tsushima,
more.
Ghost of Tsushima, you're gonna get a dual mode, right? Like you're gonna get that as Jin.
I could see a VR mode coming to the next Gran Turismo game as well. You know?
Oh, for sure. It's very exciting time. Very exciting to see what this is going to be all about. So, Blessing, you hinted around that. What is your dream PlayStation VR2 game?
My dream PlayStation VR2 game? I mean, I think Spider-Man has to happen, I think. Is that my dream, though? Is the question.
If anybody could do it and not make you sick, it's Insomniac. You know what I mean? Like, if they know Spider-Man, they understand this. And keep in mind, Insomniac did so much VR stuff before they were bought by PlayStation and you know, made into a first-party studio. So if that team is working on a Spider-Man VR game, I bet that would sing.
Yeah. I think my actual dream VR game would be for Team Asobi, who did Astrobot, to take like another 3D platformer character and make it VR, like similar to the Astrobot games, like make it Astrobot Rescue Mission 2. That's on the table too, but it could be cool to see like, okay, what does Ratchet look like in VR, but in like a Astrobot kind of way, right? Or what does, I don't know, Jack and Daxter, or like a Sly Cooper, right? Some 3D platformer that people are missing, that people want a revival of. What does that look like in PSVR through Team Asobi? I think that could be really cool.
Taylor, what about you?
Kind of want a sequel to Firewall 0 Hour.
Oh my God, yes.
It's such a good game with the aim controller. Oh, good Lord. Arguably, like when it was free that 1 year, or like that 1 month, what was it, like last year or something? I was like, okay, y'all, you gotta go get this now. Like, even if you don't have a PSVR. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Like, you know, because I think about what the adaptive triggers and stuff can do, and how that's going to be in the Sense controllers. I think about the fact that that there's just, it's a VR game. I think about, I don't know, I'm just excited to see, because I like playing first person shooters with a DualSense controller. I think it just feels great. It just, the haptics, the adaptive triggers, good Lord, it's just wonderful. So then you put that in a VR aspect, and then they say, yeah, the Sense controllers are going to have that, and then you have all this other cool stuff that PlayStation VR 2 is going to have. I was like, okay, give us a shooter that has it. Give us a Killzone game that maybe has it. But, you know, Firewall probably makes more sense, just because, you know, everyone's like, oh yeah, I loved the first Firewall game. And then of course you'll probably have people that if they think of a Killzone VR game, they're probably like, maybe that'll work. But I think Firewall would probably be safer. But I want a sequel to Firewall. I think it was a great game.
Firewall was great.
Yeah, just so good. Go
Definitely,
play it.
exactly. If this is backwards compatible, I hope a whole bunch of people go back to that because that was such a fun time. Me and Kevin loved playing that. I asked you guys what you thought on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Joe Martin says an open world Star Wars Jedi RPG.
God damn. Hey, reach for the stars. Whoa. Reach for the stars if you call your name on the clouds.
John Drake's over there signing all these Disney deals. Maybe he can get it going.
Big.
I mean, that's a lot for even outside of VR. So yeah.
Dream big.
I of course tossed out Iron Man VR getting some kind of update or whatever, because I think Iron Man VR has a lot of fun mechanics to it. I really did like Iron Man VR despite all of its load times and stuff like that. But I would love to go even further, go to a different track. I would love a Ghostbusters first-person VR game. You know what I mean? Using the PKE meter, using my Neutrona wand. Like we saw it in Dreams for that shooting gallery. I didn't even bother busting out my PlayStation VR or my PlayStation VR for it. I just played it with a DualSense on my couch at a TV. But a whole blown Ghostbusters investigation game could be a lot of fun.
You know, it's only been like probably a year and a half since I had out my PSVR last, and this conversation has made me nostalgic for my PlayStation VR. Like as we've been talking, right? I've been looking up like best 2021 PSVR games. Not many articles out there because it turns out not many PSVR games released in 2021. But the most high profile one I could find was specifically it's an article on Eurogamer titled Ian's top 10 PSVR games in 2021.
Good job, Ian.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ian Heighton over there is doing the Lord's work, and like the latter half of the games is like it's Neko Atsumi VR Kitty Collector. It's stuff of that echelon.
But there was a game helped with that ranking.
Yeah, it sounds like this Ian and Michael Heim would probably get along really well. But there's also Fracked, which I heard about last year, which I believe was like a team-based first person shooter. I might be butchering that. I'm clicking in the video right now actually so I can make sure. But I remember watching something for this game, like a trailer, and being like, that looks pretty cool. I should try that out, and never trying it out. And now after you mentioned Taylor, Firewall 0 Hour, I'm like, fuck, maybe I bust out the PSVR and play this Fracked game and see what it's about.
I hope you do. If I was a betting man, I would say you won't, but I hope you do.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. The first person shooter looks really cool.
Yeah, but you know what was the weirdest game I probably played for the PlayStation VR? Oh, Doom VFR. Oh my gosh. Oh, I would love for them to. Oh, I'd love to play that again, but I'm not. I mean,
I think Doom 3 came out last year, right? For VR, for PSVR.
I think it
maybe
did.
it came out longer ago. I don't know.
But I just like if I'm gonna play Doom VFR, I'm gonna play it on my PC. I'm not like through my Quest 2. I am not ripping out the PlayStation VR 2 or the PlayStation VR for that. But yeah, the weirdest game I think that I've probably ever played on the original PlayStation VR was this game called Conrad the Kitten, and it was the strangest thing. So it was a pet simulator in VR, and you had to you had like a PlayStation Move controller, and then they would encourage you to put it like on a plushy animal so that you were actually petting the cat and stuff. It was the weirdest thing, but I thought it was, like, if you just look up video or images, you'll see what I'm talking about. It was the strangest game, but it was kind of oddly satisfying. Like, I don't know. This was like around my time where I was like kind of on a Nintendogs obsession, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got like Nintendogs? Yes. Like, I was like, man, wouldn't it be just so cool if we had like Nintendogs, but in VR? And I was like, okay, Conrad the Kitten's close enough. I mean, it was still weird, and there wasn't a whole lot to do, but I was like, this is fun. This is great.
I do have good news. I do have good news. Fracked is on sale right now. If you have PS Plus, you can get it for $20.99 as opposed to $30. I was wrong about it being multiplayer. It's a single player game. I'm on the PlayStation page for it right now. It says Fracked is a PlayStation VR shooter that seamlessly combines relentless run and cover gunfights with free and fluid skiing and climbing. Bro, I'm gonna need you to find some Fracked footage and put it on screen when you have the chance, because like this game looks really cool.
I got it, Barrett. I'm sending it to you.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. Yeah. While we get this Fracked footage pulled up, obviously, Taylor, we're going to be covering PlayStation VR 2, the entire run up there. You'll be covering the run up on IGN. But what about final thoughts before the show moves on? Anything else you want to say about PlayStation VR 2?
I'm excited. I'm glad that Sony is giving it another shake. I just hope that with everything that they have announced, with everything that they have shown us so far with this headset, that they are fully in on VR, because I feel like, again, those first 2 years, it was great. Loved it. loved it when it just like there was so much promise and then it just kind of fell on the wayside. I don't know if it was just because of, I don't know what it was, but I just think that with what Sony has been, I wouldn't say hype it up, but just like being transparent of like, hey, here's what this is gonna do. I was like, wow, this sounds exciting, and it makes me really excited for gaming. It makes me excited because I feel, I like healthy competition, and like as much as I love the Quest 2, I would love for console VR gaming to come back on the spot. I think it's quite clear that Sony is the only one that's taking a serious direction in terms of console VR experience. I loved what Horizon Call of the Mountain had to show off. I know a lot of people didn't think it looked all that great, but I was also like, okay, but it's like VR, like you can't compare like VR to like a game. Like it's like biting into an apple and complaining that it's an orange. It's kind of unfair to just complain about something like that. And also the game's in development, so obviously it's probably gonna look a little bit better. But yeah, so in conclusion, I am so excited. I can't wait to cover this some more. I hope I get to review it. I don't know who's going to handle the reviews. I think Bo, my manager, is. I think I told Dan, I was like, yeah, Dan, I want to, Bo, Dan, if you're watching this, just know, like I've told you this on Slack, but I want to review the PlayStation VR 2. Just put my name on a list somewhere. I don't know. It wasn't on the reviews tracker or something. So yes, I want to review it, but I'm excited.
Well, thank you for coming to talk about it. Obviously, you're not getting thrown off. You're doing the rest of the show with us, but I wanted to put a pin in that. Bless, was there anything else you want to say about PlayStation VR 2 for this episode before you talk about 900 other episodes?
I don't think it's coming out this year still. That's where I'm at. So maybe you were asking me like, oh, does this change anything? Does this change? I think the one thing it changes is that like, I think they think that it's coming out this year. I think they might be confident in it. I'm not. So if it comes out this year, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna eat my shoe or anything because it could happen, but like I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. But I'm excited for it. It looks really cool, or it sounds really cool, I should say. And I hope they make some good games for it.
Barrett,
can't wait to play Fraction.
Me and the gang going to Walmart in 2020, 2050.
Shout out to
Code Lyoko. I used to love Code Lyoko back in the day.
Yeah,
Greg
that was such a good show. Oh man, we used to watch it after school. I was hyped.
Hell yeah.
Great.
That was the after school special, Code Lyoko.
Blessing, give me some PlayStation updates.
So speaking of things that we talked about a little bit last week we talked about our predictions for 2022. And I think one of the questions that Greg asked us was like, how hype are we for 2022? Is it going to be an exciting year for PlayStation? Is it going to be a thumbs up? Is it going to be an A+? What does the year look like? And to that, with some recent discoverings, it looks like 2022 might just be even bigger for PlayStation than we think. A strong might here. I'm pulling from Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle, who writes an article titled "The Last of Us PS5 remake is nearly finished and could release in 2022." It is claimed. The article reads, a PlayStation 5 remake of the original The Last of Us game is nearing completion and could be released in the second half of 2022. That's according to industry insider Tom Henderson, whose claims match information VGC has received via our own sources. Quote, heard from multiple people now that The Last of Us remake is nearly finished and could release during the latter half of 2022, Henderson tweeted. While the project has not officially been announced by Sony, Bloomberg reported last April that a remake of the 2013 PS3 game was in the works for PS5. The remake's development is reportedly being led by series creator Naughty Dog, which is said to have taken charge of the project following the completion of The Last of Us Part 2, which was released in June 2020. Greg Miller, can you believe it?
I can. I mean, we talked about it before, and I've said it before that I think, that they would be remiss not to take 2022 into 2023 and make it like the year of Last of Us, right? This HBO show we assume is dropping this fall, this October seems to be the rumor. You have that's going to bring so many new people to the franchise. Why wouldn't you double down on that and not only release this remake you've been talking about? Because this, they talk about it over there, right? Of like, or this isn't the one that talks about it. Sorry. There's this, and then Tom's tweets went on to talk about the fact that he's also heard that the Last of Us Part 2 director's cut and factions or whatever they're calling multiplayer is also happening. He doesn't know though if it's going to be this year, kind of thing. If you have all that bopping around, I would say you have these different beats of it. Where if you can meet the HBO show with the remake to have it be like, hey, here's this game that's getting, you assume 9s and 10s again, that is out on the PlayStation 5 that you assume hopefully you might be able to have an easier time getting, probably can't, but you just want all of this energy and fervor around The Last of Us. And so it'd be awesome to see them double down to do this. I do think if this is happening, there is no fucking chance you're getting God of War Ragnarok this year, which we've all been saying. I mean, it's by no stretch of the imagination.
Just believe, Greg. Just believe.
Have faith, Greg.
Hey, for the record, this isn't me saying this is ironclad. Much like I did not say it was ironclad that PlayStation was giving up on PlayStation VR. A lot of people on Tuesday night wanted to throw that in my face. And I'm like, that's not exactly what I said. I just said I could see it happening because of COVID and everything else.
Taking your words out of context on the internet? Never heard of it, Greg.
Impossible. You know what I mean? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say this. I was gonna say a similar thing of like, God of War Ragnarok and Last of Us content this fall seems like a huge like how does that happen, right? Like if you told me right now that PlayStation is gonna have Horizon next month and then God of War Ragnarok and Last of Us this fall, I'd be like, you're crazy. You're a crazy person. And I can easily see it move. I can easily see one of those things moving, specifically God of War Ragnarok, mainly because I think it lines up in terms of the Last of Us TV show and doing what you're talking about, having that big swell of, hey, we can put out a Last of Us TV show and then Last of Us remake, and if not Last of Us remake, put out the director's cut. I think either way, you see something Last of Us come out timed with or after the TV show because you want that momentum. You don't want to give that up. And I think if the Last of Us remake isn't prepared, I think for sure you got to see some kind of director's cut or something packaged up to go alongside that. And like in the case where it's the director's cut, I guess I could still see God of War Ragnarok this fall. In the case where it's Last of Us remake, then like, dude, keep God of War Ragnarok until like next spring because like you already got this fall covered. Like in that case, like we're good. Like keep that in the chamber. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Taylor. Where are you at with it?
Okay, so I mean, well, first off, I'm just excited. I love The Last of Us. It's great. Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite franchises. I think it's great. But I'm trying to think.
You don't want this remake. Or is she frozen?
You're
back.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, if they're saying it's like nearly finished, I don't know. What if it just came out in the summer, like a remake for The Last of Us? What if it just came out in the summer and then you still have God of War Ragnarok in the fall? I don't know. I feel like if they're saying it's nearly finished, I don't know. To me, that sounds like it's coming out soon. Like, and by soon I mean like maybe Q3 or late Q2. I don't know. I just think that if it was to come out, if it was to come out this year, and also God of War Ragnarok, also they wouldn't release them in the same quarter. I feel like it would. I feel like the remake would come out before Ragnarok would, in my opinion.
We're also talking about the same PlayStation that released The Last of Us Part 2 and then Ghost of Tsushima a month later.
There was a global pandemic. All right, they needed to move when they could do it.
Yeah, and also
there still is a global pandemic, right?
It's over. Go to the movies. You're fine.
Well, my next question is, have you guys warmed up to the idea? I know this was leaked almost a year ago at this point, and we had conversations. We had a whole PS Love You about it, talking about like other games they could remake.
Why?
Yeah, like why are you doing this? Now that we've had time, now we've had almost a year to sit with it and settle with the reports. Are we more open to it? Like, where do you guys stand?
Taylor,
I didn't want to interrupt anybody. I'm at a loss for words, truly.
It's one of those where like I warmed up to it. Like even when we talked about it back, I was like, this is weird because the game's been out and yet so recently in the grand scheme of things. But it's like, it's exactly what I said would happen, where it's like, yeah, cool, I'm excited for that. I'll play that. I'm sure that's gonna be great and look great. And I love Last of Us too. Like, yeah, I'll play. But it's like, yeah, I would rather them remake other games and do other things. But like, yeah, more Last of Us, sure, that sounds cool. Like, why not?
I mean, I like The Last of Us. I love The Last of Us. It's a great series. But I think about how hard it kind of is to go back and play the first game after I played the second game. The gameplay was just really good and it was fluid and just so good. So I wish that I think it's a little too early for them to remake this game because I think a gameplay mechanics aside that haven't aged too well, I guess for today's standards. I still think it's still a good game, even if it does feel a little bit more stiff compared to playing, Uncharted 4 or even The Last of Us Part 2. But, am I still going to play it if this is real? Yes, of course I am. I think I'm more just excited about how the gameplay how they're going to take what they learned from The Last of Us Part 2's gameplay and make this a lot more fun. Because again, like when I think about The Last of Us, like I go back more for the story, because the gameplay, I tolerate it. I wish it was better, but you know, for when it came out, it was really good. So
yeah, I'm still in the camp of, you know, I think The Last of Us, the original game, is easy to go back to. You know, it's aged definitely, especially after playing Last of Us Part 2. I think that's a really good point. The last time I played Last of Us was right before playing Part 2, and so I don't have that frame of reference of trying to play it now. But like removed from that context, I think it's a pretty easy and fun game to go back to. That said, you know, I remember having this conversation last year, and I don't think any of us were like, "Oh, I'm not gonna play this." Right? I think we're all still like, "No, we're gonna play the hell out of this when it comes out." We're just like, "Why? Like, why are you making?"
Yeah, it was a bit more bewildering, I guess. Right? It was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess."
Yeah, and like I think part of it too for me last year a little bit was we were coming fresh off of Last of Us Part 2, and now that we've had another year of you know, not being like coming right off of like even year conversations and playing Last of Us Part 2 half a year ago, I'm like the controversy of Last of Us Part 2 also with like the leaks and the story leak and like the reaction of fans and all this shit. Having like a year removed from that and kind of like calming down a bit on the Last of Us conversation and the Last of Us IP being in our faces, you know, now I'm at a place where I'm like, dude, this fall I could see myself being in the mood for a Last of Us. Why not? Like, dude,
you know what? I guess I'll play Last of Us.
Yeah, shoot, I'll replay the OG Last of Us this fall. Why not? You know, I'm kind of feeling it, and so
honestly, yeah, like I feel like, yeah, I mean, even if like, you know, I mean, obviously, again, I think we're all in consensus we'll play it, but even if, like, for some reason they're just like, no, we're not going to do this now, you know what? I'd still go back and play, because, like, I feel like if the show does come out this year, I'm gonna be like, you know what? I want to go back and play the first two games, even if they don't make PS5 versions of it. Yeah, like I have that hunger and I have this hype, and there's just like all this like just like emotional, just like excitement that I have, where it's like I want to just experience all the Last of Us I can. I mean, I have the books, the art books for both of them, because I just love this series so much. It's great. I love it. So. But yeah, again, I'm curious to see exactly what they do with this remake. And also, too, do you think that if they do if they announce the Last of Us remake, do you think that they're going to add factions? This is something that I've always been wondering, because like I was actually surprised by how many people love factions. Like when I think about the people in my life that played the Last of Us, a lot of them like, it had a multiplayer. I was like, yeah. So would you guys be surprised? Do you think it would have it? If, you know,
I don't think it'll have. No, a remake won't have factions, but I do think a remake could bundle in whatever Factions 2 is. But then at that point, I start getting to: are you just bundling in and calling it the Last of Us collection, the definitive experience, the definitive, director's cut of all of it? You know, like, is it just one thing? And is it almost like Miles Morales, where it's like you're buying Last of Us remake, but you're getting Last of Us 2 PS5 director's cut, and it also comes with factions or whatever. Like, we're just calling factions, but I mean factions too. Like, there's got to be some kind of synergy there. You want to make it make sense and be some kind of bundle, but if they're not ready, how do you do that and not make it annoying?
That's the thing for me too. I would be surprised and impressed if all of that is ready by this summer or even this fall, right? Where it is, hey, we have remake ready to go, we have Last of Us Factions ready to go, and Last of Us Factions 2 ready to go, and we also have the director's cut ready to go. Because I think theoretically you would want to bundle all that together. I think you can piecemeal a remake and have that come out easily without it being bundled with another thing. You could probably even do that with Factions. But if you're gonna, I feel like remake and Factions 2 don't go together as well, right? I think that's a harder thing to sell. And if you're gonna title it, right, I think of Factions 2 for what this build up to it has been, I think it's something that's gonna either exist standalone or for a director's cut. And I think with that, you gotta title it something that is gonna feel new and big, right? You can't if you put out Last of Us remake, if you just put Factions in that then feels like a wall, in the way that Ghost of Tsushima Legends, when that came out as part of Ghost of Tsushima, that kind of cut down on the amount of audience that I think flocked to it, because they didn't understand that like this is this big new experience. It just felt like an add-on to the original game. Whereas no, this is the thing we put effort into. Like, this is a whole nother game inside this game that you can play. So I think that's the challenge there. So I think if I had to predict, I think this fall we get Last of Us remake, and next year we get director's cut with Factions 2. That would be my prediction.
Factions 2.
Factions 2.
You have to say it just like that every time.
Factions 2.
To continue on with the PlayStation updates, though, I want to ask a big question based on conversations from last week. Did Days Gone deserve a sequel? I asked this question, and I asked this question based on an article I'm pulling from Rebecca Valentine at IGN, who writes, Days Gone director says Sean Layden's departure killed chances for a sequel. The article reads like this: On a stream with Twisted Metal director David Jaffe, former Ben Studio director and writer John Garvin and game director Jeff Ross talked about Ben's struggle to get a green light for a Days Gone sequel as the studio's next project. While former Sony head Sean Layden had apparently championed the game, Ross said that, quote, as soon as Sean was gone, Days Gone was dead, end quote. Ross went on to say that in the process of figuring out what Ben Studio would work on instead, Sony asked them if there were any other Sony IPs they would be willing to use for a pitch, including Ben's old project, Siphon Filter.
Siphon Filter.
Siphon Filter. I don't want to be
Siphon Filter.
But Ben turned them down. Ross said, quote, I have zero ideas on how to reboot Siphon Filter, end quote. With neither Siphon Filter nor Days Gone 2 on the table, Ross added that the team also had pitched an open-world Resistance game, with Ben having worked on Resistance Retribution back in 2009. However, with 2011's Resistance 3 largely a commercial failure, Sony didn't seem interested in a new Resistance title either. Ross and Garvin's interview with David Jaffe follows a tweet from Ross earlier this week about how Days Gone likely sold about as well as Ghost of Tsushima, but was treated by Sony management as a disappointment. And like I listened to your games daily, Greg, where you kind of went on like the whole like presentation of like this is why, or this is why,
possibly why
this is possibly why Days Gone 8 million sold does not equate to Ghost of Tsushima's 8 million sold, which I think you made a very salient and good point there. But with that, I want to pivot.
Well, then remember the next day they did this article, or I'm sorry, they did Jaffe's podcast in which Jeff revealed his sources of the 8 million being not trustworthy. They weren't apples numbers. It was a trophy tracking site and then a Steam tracking site. And so if it's trophy tracking site, that includes if you bought it but somebody else plays it on your unit, if somebody rented the game, if it was PlayStation Plus, it was like 8 million users had used it, but not that. So it actually didn't work out. And Jeff Grubb had, I want to say like 5.7 million is what he had ever heard from PlayStation itself, but that's me pulling a Jeff Grubb thing out there. So I'm sorry, Blessing. What was your question?
But also, I mean, to piggyback off of that, right? I think I stand by as well. I think there's a lot of reasons why, and I guess this filters into the question, right? Funnels into the question. I think there are a lot of reasons why you wouldn't greenlight a Days Gone 2, even beyond that. But that brings me to the question of, does Days Gone 2 or did Days Gone 2 deserve a sequel?
I mean, my short answer as somebody who did not vibe with Days Gone and did not super enjoy Days Gone by any stretch of the imagination is yes. I think it did deserve a sequel. I thought there were a lot of great ideas in Days Gone, number one. And I love Sony Bend as a developer. Obviously, I've talked about it before. Resistance Retribution is my favorite Resistance. I loved their Siphon Filter games. I dug Uncharted Golden Abyss from them. And I think that Days Gone just cooked in the hopper a bit too long. I think it was way too long of a game. I think that the story was a bit... characters were not played... performances weren't bad. They weren't written believably. I didn't like it. There's a whole bunch of little things that I think that they could take the feedback they got and actually hone Days Gone 2 into something great. Because you'll never hear me say the world wasn't pretty. You'll never say that like it wasn't fun to take on a horde. They just introduced the horde at like hour 40 of the game. Like introduce that way earlier. Let's get to the fun stuff earlier. Let's get more of the breakout stuff going. I think Days Gone 2 could have been something that was really fun. And Days Gone has an incredibly dedicated fan base of people who disagree with me very vocally about how good or bad the game was. And so I think that they could have done something awesome. And I think it could have been a franchise for PlayStation or something to iterate on. It's just like to go back to what I had said on the other one, right? Of like, in a lot of ways, the zombie fad, zombies aren't as big as they were. I don't think zombies were a fad. There's still a lot of zombie IP out there that people love, but it's not nearly the fever pitch it was in 2013 when Days Gone apparently got pitched and Walking Dead was a thing. Sons of Anarchy was also on TV and a huge fucking deal back then. And then on top of that, if you're a PlayStation, and I talked about it earlier, right? Of like, what is a PlayStation Studios game? You expect high quality, great narrative, succinct gameplay and tight. And Days Gone wasn't those things necessarily. And I think to say that, and you're always going to be second place if you're trying to be PlayStation zombie game to The Last of Us. And so why keep going? I'm sure PlayStation, talk about Sean, Jeff saying that, Sean leaving, that he was a big cheerleader. He was a big champion of him. Him leaving and is dead in the water. It was an uphill battle to try to get it. So let Sony Bend go make something else.
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, go for it, Taylor. Go for it.
Oh, okay. No, I was just agreeing with all like yeah, I'm agreeing with Greg. I wasn't vibing with it. A lot of the things that Lucy mentioned in her review, shout out to Lucy O'Brien, by the way.
Lucy O'Brien, the lion.
And so, you know, I agreed with a lot of her points, and like I wasn't vibing with it like the first like 5 hours. I was like, this is it? I just, you know, and maybe it was because I got spoiled by what The Last of Us offered. And I know those are two completely different games. It's not fair to compare those games to some degree. But I think with what I wanted in a zombie game at that time, I felt like The Last of Us gave us everything that we wanted to see from zombie games at that point in time. And then they did a really good follow-up in 2020 with The Last of Us Part 2. With Days Gone, like, yes, the world looked beautiful. The hordes were great. Again, they waited too long to introduce the hordes. But I felt like, too, a lot of, like, the side missions and all the other stuff in the game, it just felt hollow. I don't know. It felt so much like a quantity over quality, and I hate when open world games focus more on the quantity, because it's like, it doesn't matter if you have all this stuff in your open world if it all kind of looks the same and bleeds the same, and there's like maybe 2 to 3 variations, and like all you do is like color swap a NPC or something. What difference does that make? I'd rather you cut half of that and give me more quality, more narrative driven side missions that actually make me compelled to want to complete this game 100%. It just doesn't make sense to put 1,000 side quests, but realistically there are like maybe like 5. It's like 5 variations of like tenfold. It seems repetitive. It feels like almost like a waste of a player's time, realistically, and it just feels like a waste of game developer resources, I feel. So I mean, I feel like if they had made a sequel, I would have gave it a shot, but I just feel that with the opportunity they had in the from when it was, I don't know, I wasn't there for the pitch when it happened in like 2013, but I feel like too much time had gone by, and I think with whatever they wanted to accomplish, it would have been great if it came out like maybe 2014, 2015. It would have been great, but I think it came out too late, and I just feel that, I mean, yeah, it sucks that they won't get another shot at it, but I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like with what they had, it just doesn't make me compelled to say, you know what, I really want a sequel.
Yeah, I think for me, I think for me, I struggle a little bit with the question, because I look at it from a few different places. As like an audience member, right? I've only played a few hours of Days Gone, and I immediately just didn't vibe with it, right? I immediately was like, no, this is not me. I don't think I enjoy this game that much. That being said, I have that plenty of times where I'll play a game that is typically the first installment of the game, see the potential, and go, oh, I can't wait for a sequel to this, because the sequel is going to fix all my issues. Even something like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I did really like. Playing through that game, there are many moments while playing through the original Horizon where I'm like, fuck, man, I can't wait for Horizon, whatever the next game is, because like, now that they have this solidified, now that they have like this template, the next thing is going to be a banger. It's in the way that so many people love Assassin's Creed 2 when that came out, because Assassin's Creed 1 was like the establishment, and then Assassin's Creed 2 took that and then knocked it out the park, because from there it's smooth cruising of like fix the flaws and then elevate it. And I think for so many studios, that is such a good opportunity to like put out a first installment of a new IP and be like, cool, here's an idea, and now here's the second one that's going to take this idea and elevate it way further into something that's going to be one of your favorite games. And so I think on that standpoint, I would love to see Days Gone, or I would have loved to see Days Gone get a sequel, because I think there's a lot of potential there in terms of how they can fix. On the business standpoint of like, why, if I was Sony, I probably wouldn't greenlit a Days Gone 2, is because like,
now, hold on a second, you're changing the question, right? It was, did it deserve it? And I'm saying, like, for Sony Bend, a talented bunch of people, I think they deserved it. You're bringing the business sense in. No, I'm right there with PlayStation. Of like, no, they shouldn't have made another one. And even when Jeff did his tweets and like the Days Gone fan base was up in arms about it, I was like, come on, guys, like, really, like, no, like, it's good, you know what I mean? Like, I understand there's this passionate audience that did. There's this huge audience that owned PlayStation 4s and were like, no, I'm not playing that.
Yeah, like, and like, in that sense, I almost don't know how Days Gone 1 got greenlit. Like in what you bring up, Taylor, in terms of the Last of Us thing, right? Like Days Gone in a lot of ways, I think in terms of tone and energy, does feel like a game that would have came out like years earlier than it did, right? Because that game came out in 2019. I keep thinking it came out in 2015. It feels like a game that should have come out in like 2011. In my first few hours with it, of course, I'm sure there's plenty more that I just not discovered and that I could experience. But with that, yeah, like you have Last of Us existing as a competitor, and you have Last of Us Part 2. If Days Gone came out in 2019, yeah, Last of Us Part 2 coming out in 2020, the year after. And you have that being a direct comparison and a thing already in your portfolio that I think is ticking a lot of the same boxes in a way that is masterful and brilliant, and in a way that is critically such a darling that I don't know how Days Gone just exists. I don't know how Days Gone exists in that same ecosystem of first party titles in a way where it's like, why do this when we can make any other sort of type of game? Not a Resistance open world, because that sounds crazy. In a way where I'm like, that sounds like an even worse idea than Days Gone 2. Just make Days Gone 2. But in a way where it's like, yeah, make a Siphon Filter, make something else that speaks to you. I think Days Gone is like it exists in such a weird place for what it is that it's so hard for me to be like, yeah, you're crazy for not greenlighting Days Gone 2.
For sure.
I think it makes a lot of sense to not do Days Gone 2 and try to pivot to something else in that sense. But yeah, to the question of does it deserve, I personally would have liked to see a Days Gone 2.
If for me, Days Gone, and to end the show, right?
Yeah.
Days Gone in the like, oh man, I wish I could have gotten a sequel on a game I didn't really like vibe with, is the same when I talk about The Order. Where it's like, oh man, like The Order was gorgeous and had a lot of cool ideas and it didn't work, but it ends in a place where that would be interesting to see more of. Like I would love to see all the feedback Ready at Dawn got and have them go make a Order 2. And that just didn't happen. And now, they're gone making their VR games as well. So it's like, whatever. And it's a similar situation here, except that Sony Bend, of course, owned and operated by PlayStation, so that like they get to take all that feedback into whatever their next project is. And John Garvin and Jeff Ross are both gone. Jeff Ross actually did do a follow-up tweet to the Jaffe podcast saying when he mentioned the Resistance open world thing, that was an actually idea from Eric Jensen, who of course Podcast Beyond fans will know because Eric Jensen has been listening to PlayStation shows I've made for forever. And he was one of the directors on Days Gone, and now he's still at Sony Bend. So again, the feedback they got on this game will be in their next thing, but we will have to wait and see on that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been another episode of PS I Love You XOXO. Remember, the show isn't over. You can go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames. See what the post show is all about. Of course, on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, you can get each and every episode ad-free. You can get it early and watch it live, just like Slacks is watching right now. My dog, Nick96. Of course, you can get it for free at youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday. Taylor, thank you so much for hanging out with us today to talk about PlayStation VR and Days Gone. Where can people keep up with you?
Yeah, you can just follow me on Twitter at TayNixter, and or just IGN.com because I work there.
It's a good website. Bless. Did you ever work at IGN?
Yeah, did you ever work at IGN?
A lot of really cool people worked at IGN.
A lot of cool people worked at IGN.
I applied. I applied. They just never answered, and so.
Oh, that's what those letters I threw away were.
God damn it! I knew I shouldn't have sent it through you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a post show to do, but until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.